Okay, so I'm really happy to be with my friend and colleague Robert Floyd today for a little interview. We're going to talk about leaky gut solution, which is what Robert is doing. So Robert is a medical doctor living in Nevada, USA, and he's also a functional medicine practitioner and is a specializing in leaky gut. So we're going to talk about that today. So hi, Robert. I'm really happy to be talking with you today. How are you doing?
Marie, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I really want to recognize you for what you do, helping children. It's amazing. I've always been really supportive of you and think what you're doing is awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much, Robert. I'm super happy to know you as well, and what your work is super important as well. So why don't we dive right into the subject? So do you want to tell us a little bit more about what is actually leaky gut?
Sure, love to. As a medical doctor, I went through 4 years of medical school and then 5 years of residency training. And then it didn't really prepare me for anything out of medical school and being a doctor. There, it prepared me. What it prepared me for was to diagnose problems and treat them with pharmaceutical medications. And I've always been kind of out of the box kind of person. I'm not your typical doctor, so I've always kind of thought, hey, wait, isn't there a better way to do this? And the way I see it, what I've seen in the hospital, and luckily not in my clinic, because the people in my clinic actually, they pay money, so they pay attention and do what I ask them to do, because it's not just some insurance thing that I see them for 15 minutes. But what I found when I was kind of searching outside of the box after being an active practicing doctor for a few years was I came across functional medicine. And to me, functional medicine was kind of almost a panacea of like, oh my God, this is actually what we need to do to get people healthy. Every day I work in the hospital. Well, not anymore. Thank goodness I've cut back greatly from there. I would see all these people sicker than snot. And I'm like, why are they all here? Why are they all here? Why are they all here? And they all had one thing in common. They're all eating the standard American diet. Okay. And unfortunately, the standard American diet is poison. I mean, I will just come out and say it outright. It is freaking poison. It's terrible. It's not healthy. It leads to chronic disease. Okay. And so after a while, I was, working in the ER, working in the hospital, and I kind of just felt like I was just literally putting Band-Aids on severed limbs in the hospital. It was too little, too late. And so when I found functional medicine, and it's basically root cause medicine of like, hey, why are you sick? Let's get to the cause of why you're sick. I decided that, like, instead of just putting Band-Aids on these people's severed limbs, I want to prevent them from having, quote, the severed limbs. I want to stop people from getting diabetes, from getting Hashimoto's, from getting lupus, from getting coronary artery disease, from anxiety and depression, and I know that's a big part of your program, and it's all interconnected. And the thing I noticed, it's all from the standard American diet. And so when I went into functional medicine, I had been dabbling a little bit in nutrition before. I've always been an athlete my whole life. I was a climbing guide and a ski patroller. I raced mountain bikes and so on and so forth. So nutrition was kind of a big part of me. And luckily I went to college at the CU Boulder in Colorado, which is kind of a hippieville place, right? It's pretty down to earth, pretty crunchy granola style hippie. It's funny, for a while, I was a vegan for a week. That didn't last. And then I was a vegetarian for 6 years. I don't know if I was any healthier then, but it was just one of those things that kind of made me realize I got to focus on, and I got to be cognizant of what I eat. And so that kind of gave me some wherewithal to think about nutrition. And what really kind of drove me more towards nutrition as I was in Colorado was I was really, really into climbing. And as a climber, I would say that probably of all the people out there, of all the athletes out there, climbers probably are the most like anorexic style people. Like they're very, very, very concerned about body fat and weight to, muscle to fat ratio, because as you're climbing really, really hard stuff, like really overhanging cliffs where it's gymnastic and, you're going from one hold to the next, you have to be really, really fit and strong. And a lot of people really focus on nutrition. And so again, it all kind of has come to fruition with me going through medical school then, and then functional nutrition or functional medicine. And I realized that, like, wow, it's all about what we eat and how we eat and when we eat. And so I dove into the rabbit hole of reading scientific papers and books and such, and found that, this thing called intestinal permeability, which functional medicine doctors have been talking about it for almost 30 years. And there's a doctor, Alessio Fasano. He is like the guru of gut health, basically. He is a pediatric GI doctor in UCLA, I think. And he came over from Italy and he got recruited to come to the United States, and I want to say 1988, and work on cholera testing or cholera research. And he said, it's a really great podcast. Where was he on? I think A4M. I'm not really sure. It doesn't matter. But he talked about, like, he failed terribly at this cholera vaccine that he was trying to develop. But it was there he found Xenoline. And Xenoline are these little tiny proteins that hold the lining of your gut together. And when they get damaged and get separated, a whole cascade of bad things happen. And basically what it is like, he talks about gluten, but it's basically a standard American diet is causing leaky gut. Okay, I know that's a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry to just ramble, but
it's so
leaky gut
interesting,
is,
and I can relate so much to what you're saying, because as a naturopath, we've been talking so much about gut health for years and decades, right? And it's so nice to now hear that science is backing everything we've been saying for so many years, right? And so do you want to tell us, like, a little bit more about what is actually Xenoline, and can we find it somewhere in food, or like, can we activate Xenoline in our own body?
I've never seen any research that says that you can activate Xenoline, but one thing you can do, again, I'll go back. Xenoline is a small protein that holds the single layer cells, the intestinal epithelium cells, together, which line both the inside of both your small intestine and your large intestine. They have a bunch of little finger-like projections, right? And so they have finger-like projections so that there's better nutrient absorption, right? And so I don't know if you can see my hands, but imagine my two hands are two cells lining the inside of your intestine, and right here is where the food goes by. So the Xenoline would be holding my two hands together. It's a little protein. I know you can't hear me or see me. Peekaboo. And it holds these cells together. Okay. And the biggest culprit for harming Xenoline is gluten. It's the gliadin protein from wheat. Okay. Yeah. And, everybody's heard of, gluten-free this, gluten-free that. And unfortunately, the wheat in America has been kind of genetically modified for higher production of food, but lower nutrient value. And because of that, it has way more gluten in it. Okay. When you ingest gluten, it goes down into your stomach, then goes into your intestines. And what it does is the little protein, it wiggles in between the two cells, breaking the Xenoline apart. Okay. One of the ways that you can test this is that you can actually see Xenoline particles in the blood. It's not a very good test, but it's real. And I believe that's how Dr. Fasano found the Xenoline. So what happens is when these cells, they get broken apart, this cell and this cell now get damaged. Okay. These finger-like projections, they get damaged. And the first thing that happened when you have these proteins coming through and going paracellularly, which means not through the cell, but next to the cell, you get nutrient absorption deficiency, right? Because your cells that are supposed to be absorbing nutrients inside your intestines are no longer functioning like they're supposed to. Okay.
Mhm.
So I like to draw a lot of pictures in my clinic, and I draw a really great picture, and I'm thinking about it in my head right now. So the first thing that happens when you get these lectins, proteins, gliadin, lectins, a lot of different things cause damage to the cells. Antibiotics, dysbiosis, a mal, what's the word? A malalignment of the good bacteria versus the bad bacteria. Like I said, antibiotics, alcohol causes it, NSAIDs cause it. All sorts of things can cause damage to these proteins holding the cells together. And like I said, the first thing that happens is you get a decreased nutrient absorption. And then the next thing that happens with leaky gut is that those lectins actually poke holes in the one layer between your intestines and your cardiovascular supply, because right next to your intestines, you have blood vessels. And so food comes through this little cell. And then from here, it goes, if this red shirt is the blood supply, it goes into there as nutrients. Okay. And so then what happens is that one layer gets holes poked in it. And that is actually leaky gut. Okay. And so when the cells, the intestinal epithelial cells, they have two functions. Their number one function is for absorption of nutrients, and their second function is a protective barrier. It's actually called the brush border because it's a border. It stops the bad stuff from getting into the bloodstream. So when you have these, whatever it is that is causing leaky gut, you suddenly have a whole bunch of foreign bodies inside your blood vessels from the stomach area, from the intestines. Okay. And so what happens is, just like if you were to get a splinter in your thumb, okay, we've all had a splinter in our hand or a thumb or whatever. What happens? It gets a little bit red, it gets a little bit swollen, it gets a little warm. And then, after a couple of days, maybe you can squeeze it out because there's some pus that comes and helps it get out of the body. That is your immune system activating against the foreign body. Okay. So now what happens is when you have intestinal permeability, AKA leaky gut, you have a bunch of things in your bloodstream that are not supposed to be there. You have undigested food particles, you have dirt, because when we eat, there's dirt and everything in our stomach and in the intestinal lining. You have bacteria that are not supposed to be inside your blood vessels. You have viruses, fungi. You have endotoxins, which are really, really, really bad. They're the toxins released from the inside of bacteria. When those get inside your bloodstream, you now have generalized inflammation because your immune system says, hey, wait a minute, what are all these foreign bodies? And so what happens is your immune system goes on high alert and starts attacking these foreign bodies. And I like to say, it's not just right here in your stomach area, okay? It's head to toe, fingertip to fingertip. Your whole body is inflamed because now your immune system is on hyperactive overdrive, and all these foreign invaders are throughout your entire body. And so, again, it goes, the first thing you get is decreased nutrient absorption. The second thing you get is leaky gut from the things poking holes inside the blood vessels in that one layer thick cell. The next thing you get is generalized inflammation.
Okay.
And so what happens is your immune system is just on super high alert, and it's revved up. And it's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
And so, you've asked, we were talking a little bit earlier, what are some of the effects of leaky gut on the body?
Yeah.
Well, when you have generalized inflammation, you have lower resources to fight off other bugs, other bacteria. If you get sick, if you have generalized inflammation all the time, your immune system it's going to get worn out. And so what that does is that causes you to be sick. It causes your body to be in kind of a fight or flight mode. And basically, when you're doing that, you don't have time to regenerate and be healthy and recoup from other assaults, such as, the virus that we won't mention that we just all recently went through.
Yeah.
And then another thing that is really, really astounding is that when you have your immune system on hyperdrive and high alert all the time, it leads to chronic disease and
Mm.
autoimmune disease especially.
Oh yeah, yeah. So those would be some of the issues you will see in your practice when it comes to leaky gut. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about what are maybe 5 of the main health issues that you find are related to leaky gut?
Absolutely, absolutely. Number one is probably obesity. Okay, because when you have your immune system on high alert, like I said, you're in the fight or flight response. Your hormones become unbalanced. Okay, so what happens is when you have hormone imbalances, because the human body is genius and it balances the hormones just magically the way it's supposed to. If you feed it well and take care of it, your hormones should be in balance. And so when your hormones become out of balance, that's when you can see obesity. You can see PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome in women.
Yeah.
You can see a really marked increase in cancers because when your hormones are out of balance, estrogen is one of the main hormones for cancer. And if you have way too much estrogen, you're at risk for cancer. Some of the other issues I see with leaky gut, like I said, is autoimmune disease. Okay. Another one is brain fog, because when you have this generalized inflammation from head to toe, it also, what it does is it makes the blood-brain barrier, which is kind of a semi-permeable membrane around your brain, but it's very protective. It only lets good things in and good things out, and bad things out. Sorry. That gets more porous when you have leaky gut because you have the inflammation. And so what that can lead to is brain fog. And a lot of people have a lot of brain fog these days.
Oh, yeah.
And in relation to what you're doing with anxiety and depression, when you have inflammation of the brain, it can lead to an increased amount of anxiety, increased amount of depression, and other neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Yeah, it's really, really bad. And intestinal permeability leads to, it's my humble belief that leaky gut leading to chronic inflammation is the root cause of the majority of all the diseases we see out there,
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, it started to get a little bit better known from like general population, but still it's not something that we're so familiar with. So, and you've mentioned gluten being one of the cause of leaky gut. Is there anything else that you find is directly linked to leaky gut?
Like I said, dysbiosis, when you have a malalignment of good bacteria versus bad bacteria. And that definitely happens with the standard American diet. Again, if you eat the standard American diet, which unfortunately has crept its way up into Canada, you have intestinal permeability. Bacteria, antibiotics can increase leaky gut. Because they go and harm the zonulin and occludins, the tight junctions as well. They kill the good bacteria, which lets the other bad things get through, wiggle through those cells and harm them. Alcohol, at a more than a moderate amount of alcohol, probably any alcohol really does it, but I'm not a teetotaler and say, oh my God, don't drink alcohol. But if you are really trying to heal the gut, I would say, you got to get rid of all the triggers. And, remove the triggers and replace it with good healing properties. And then another thing is that people don't recognize is lectins. And lectins are just little proteins that your body can't break down any further than what they're broken down to. And lectins can do the same thing. They poke holes in the guts, and lectins are, found in beans and things like that.
Okay.
So I often recommend that people go gluten-free and try to go lectin-free. And, lectins are found in beans and grains a lot. So.
Okay. And does lectin is a molecule that can be break down if we, as an example, cook those beans, or?
If you can soak beans, it helps make them less toxic to your gut lining.
Okay.
And again, I'm not anti-bean, but when I have people on my program to heal the gut, I say, let's get you off of lectins and, get off of beans for 12 weeks. It's like, you're a naturopathic doctor. I know you've prescribed a lot of elimination diets, and an elimination diet is only for a specific amount of time, right? So what I do when I heal my client's gut is I basically do an elimination diet for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we can reintroduce things. So
yeah, exactly. And do you want to tell us a little bit more about, like, maybe just give us maybe your top 5 tips to reverse leaky gut?
Yeah. Number 1 is avoid gluten.
Yeah, I was pretty sure you would say that.
And that's the number 1 thing. And not everybody has celiac disease. And, there's some doctors out there who say, oh my God, you're crazy if you think leaky gut exists. I've actually even had GI doctors tell me they don't believe in intestinal permeability, which baffled me, right? And not everybody has celiac disease. In fact, it's very, very rare. But there's also other types of gluten insensitivity, intolerance, wheat sensitivity, non-celiac wheat sensitivity. And again, like I said, the wheat that we eat in America has been modified, and it's really, really bad because a lot of it is Roundup ready, right? So that means they spray Roundup, which is a poisonous chemical. They spray Roundup on it right before they cut it down because it helps dry it out. So I would recommend avoiding wheat products in America unless it says that they are organic, because like gluten can harm your intestines. The Roundup is an antibiotic. It's
A pesticide?
A pesticide. Yeah, sorry, I had a little blank right there. It's a pesticide, and pesticides actually really harm the bugs in your gut, your microbiome. And that, again, like I said, the dysbiosis can lead to intestinal permeability. So what I would recommend is avoid gluten, avoid wheat, unless it's non-GMO organic, avoid artificial sweeteners, because those really, really harm the gut as well and the bacteria.
Such as aspartame or something like that?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
NutraSweet. Very few people know this, but NutraSweet was discovered when they were trying to make another pesticide.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is,
yeah.
okay.
So
it was like a byproduct, or like, oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that gives us a little bit of an idea of what this is made of, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so again, a pesticide is really bad for your gut microbiome. I mean, that could be a whole nother, 6-hour lecture on just that. And so, I know you study that and work with that as well in the program that you do, because it's so very important to have a healthy microbiome, because the bugs really, really make us healthy. And so, I don't know if I answered your question. You asked for a few
you
things.
gave me quite a few tips on how we can actually already take some steps to sort of start reversing leaky gut. And now I'm curious to know, like, how long do you think it usually takes to really try to reverse this condition? Like, are we looking at a few weeks, a few months, if we want to try to really heal our gut? How long does it usually take?
Well, if we compare an elimination diet, and, in functional medicine, we do elimination diets for a minimum of 3 weeks. And that is because IgG, which is an antibody, a chronic antibody, the half-life of that, or the lifespan of IgG, is about 20 days, 21 days. So maybe 23 days. So if we start taking and removing the offending agents for leaky gut, I would recommend a minimum of, 6 weeks, maybe 7-8 weeks. My program is 12 weeks because, the cells in the gut turn over every 3 days, right? And so they're one of the fastest cells that turn over in the body. Basically, all the mucous membranes, the lining from the top to the bottom, they all turn over in about 3 days. but I recommend that people at least try to get rid of these things, these offending agents, for a minimum of a month. And you got to let your gut heal. I was just explaining this to someone I had breakfast with today, which I don't normally have breakfast because I like to fast every day. That helps heal the gut as well. That, like, having leaky gut is like having a chronic sore on your arm. Okay. And if you have a chronic sore on your arm, it's like having inflamed intestines, right? Think about your intestines as like they're chronically being damaged by what you're eating every day. And it's just like if I have the sore on my arm, if I'm picking at it every day, it's never going to heal.
Yeah.
So what I tell people is that you have to remove the offending agents to let your guts heal. The longer you do that, the better. So,
okay, that's great. This is so interesting. And so now I'm curious to know if people want to learn more about the program you do propose, which is called the Leaky Gut Solution. Where can they find you?
You can find me. It's www.trimdownpowerup. It's Dr. Floyd on Facebook. It's Dr. Floyd's Leaky Gut Solution on YouTube. And then I'm going to start writing on Substack as well, because I want to get more information out there to help people, because people don't know this. And that's one of the things I realize, that people don't know. We take for granted, Marie-Eve, we take for granted what we know, right? And we think everybody knows all this stuff, but most people don't know this stuff. And so, as a physician, and most people don't know that the word physician actually means teacher. So it's our job to teach people, right?
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for sharing this knowledge with us today, Robert. I really appreciate the work you do and what you do to help people to be healthier. Thank you for taking the time to be with me today. It was a real pleasure to be speaking with you.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here, Marie-Eve. I love what you're doing for kids, and you and I are right on the same path to make the world a better place. So
yeah, exactly.
Thank you for having me. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, take care.
Bye-bye.